Hello. My name is Simon Dybbroe Møller, and this is Why Words Now. Tonight is the first time that we are collaborating with Fog Food Club, founded by Maja Lee Hattelin in 2021. Fog Food Club is now run by Andreas Hatt and sous chefs. So please stay around after this reading for a beautiful serving of Reba prepared by Andreas and Maria Lindblad after this reading. Also after the reading, go check out Johan Bæk Jespersen and Thea Berglow's show at Q across the street. So basically stick around. Tonight, I'm honored to welcome Reba Maybury. Reba is an artist and a writer, and she is a political dominatrix. She sometimes works under the name Mistress Rebecca. Reba recently moved to rural Denmark, to Jutland, or more precisely to Funner Bakke. Reba's first novella, Dining with Humpty Dumpty, was published in 2017. Welcome to Why Words Now, Reba Maybury.
Oh, that's really nice. Well, I can't see many of you, but what I need for this reading is a man. And I have been looking at you all before I started. And I think there's a man who came in at the very end there, the man standing. Will you come and read something for me? Yeah, okay. So you consent to this? You consent to the reading?
I can read it.
Yeah, so you can sit down there. So it's important that you don't speak too closely to the microphone. The parts that you're going to read are highlighted in blue, and there are some things that are circled that are sort of gestures. You understand?
The blue part?
Yeah, so the blue parts that are highlighted you're going to read. Okay. Are you ready? Yeah. Chapter 1. Mistress Rebecca meets Dr. Common Sense. The vibrantly dull man's eyes pierce through me, and I tell him to close his legs. An invisible line from his irises projects forward, as if he is casting a net over me. I sense his pupils skim my collarbone, breasts, waist, and then for a split second they lay at my crotch. This whimsical laser that he so casually emits begins to work at the speed of a stopwatch. Every millimeter, a new part of my body is consumed, while his hands limply grasp one another between his knees. His thumb and index finger meet, making a thin triangle of space, an assumption of assertive relaxation to mediate the passive desire that his body reverberates with. This is not a consciously complex use of his body and mind, but instead something seemingly pedestrian. As I observe him in return, I can feel this complexity, this wanton tension, but to him this is normal. Inhibition is irrelevant to what he believes he can look at. To him, his stare is an untouchable thing, an unconsciously irresponsible affair. We are in a bar, and opposite me on the blushed pink conch-shaped sofa, over the glass coffee table, and under the nocturnal mood lighting, his legs are a splayed open airport novel. His spine is a relaxed semicolon that doesn't pause, but instead juts out of clarity. My posture is an exclamation point in a silk dress. I am acutely aware of this banally conventional and familiar, yet somehow intimate moment. Two people, strangers, one a man and one a woman, in a public setting. I am at work, and this is our first meeting. He, however, does not think that I'm at work because to him, everything is his entertainment. You need to close your legs, I tell him again, as if he doesn't really believe my order was serious. A confident ambivalence looms around the man. It pulsates through the fibers of his jeans and buzzes through the casually transparent hairs of his monobrow into a dazzling radiation of underwhelming drabness. He does as I say. You've got to close your legs now. A little bit more, go on. That's better. But through this new body posture, he maneuvers into what appears to be an utterly unnatural composure. His legs join in the middle, swing to the side, then back to the middle, where he pushes out his chest, with his head slowly following, placing his elbows on his knees and resting his clasped knuckles to his chin, dropping his shoulders, then returning his eyes to me, the object of attention that he wants to win. It seems that he finds my exterior attractive and his eyes are still hungry. I enjoy looking good, but this is something I do for myself and not for him. It is, however, a tool I can and do use. He can only consume so much of me before the sparring will begin. My eyes have accepted that they cannot expect the same consideration, that this man's generic output seems to have never acknowledged that these details could or would ever be demanded of him. "You're 5 minutes late," I tell him again. And instead of making eye contact, I review the slick, beige-pink space where his hairline begins and his sandy eyebrows end.
Yeah, traffic wasn't great.
He delivers this tedious excuse with the buoyancy of a man who has never had to adjust his behavior to any given social situation, as if he will always be accepted into any place he finds himself in, and even worse than this, he will always be considered interesting. The bar we are sitting in is decorated to resemble a speakeasy. I wonder if this design decision was based on an ambition to make the consumer feel as if they can escape into a momentary bout of ill minor behavior. Maybe this can make some people feel alive, to have a stage to perform a proximity to a whimsical mirage of danger, as if this is where fun can breathe, when it pretends that it is an escape to a place where responsibility no longer exists because you are actually in the past. You can pretend to do illegal things here, but really, you are safe. We are not locked away in some American metropole, hiding from the world and its puritanical orders in the early hours of the morning, risking our public image to have fun, let loose, becoming a part of an underworld. Instead, it is 6 p.m. on a hot summer night in a largely gentrified area of the city, and the sun has no intention of setting anytime soon. The bar has just opened. We are the only customers here. Living in an expensive city is an experience based on the inevitability of being humiliated by other people's tastes. The waitress comes to our table. She has a sweet face, kind eyes, but in tandem with the bar also seems to hold on to the unfortunate trappings of an adoration for a rose-tinted view of the past, a frisson of sentimentality, where the future, or perhaps the present, is of no concern, delving the visitor of this bar into a realm of political apathy. She wears the fashions of an era that have only ever existed in people's minds, a particularly absurd amalgamation of ideas of mid-century Americana breaking out into some sort of subversion in a very limited way. A time where the mass consumers of rock and roll allowed themselves to believe that it was pure and real, and the concept of the teenager was born, still considering its rebellion valid. I suppose this is classified as rockabilly, a lifestyle that has always felt like some sort of emotional and social stagnation that is romanticized with absolute plasticity. The clothes, hairstyle, and music as they exist today feel inescapably manufactured in their mimicking of pre-postmodern culture. Her fringe is painfully straight, starting too far up her forehead. This hairstyle often sucks any potential humor out of a human's demeanor, but there is an ease to how her cheeks meet her lips that absolves this. Regardless, I instantly respect her because I see she retrieves pleasure from dressing, and this is greatly underrated and something women are degraded for when really it is a superpower. I smile at her, and before he believes he is allowed to speak, fixing eye contact with her, she turns to me more than him. Then I say, "Hello, could I please have a glass of champagne and also a glass of lukewarm tap water, please?" I see her eyes light up and watch him lightly shift in the corner of my eye. She asks if we would like anything else, and I politely decline.
"So, how are you?"
he says once the waitress has turned away and is out of earshot, his eyes still avid and expectant. "I am fine," I reply curtly, repositioning my body into a soft iron rod as I face him. His body is curved into its semicolon once more, resting his back into the sofa, which isn't actually old, but is trying its best to imitate this. He is reclining, placing his hands behind his head, and folding one foot over his knee as if he was about to ask me, a woman, to brief him in the office. Oh, yeah.
"I like this place. Great ambience, really cool."
He says as he spectates the artificial palm tree to his right. I think it's awful. Nostalgia is a disease, I say.
All right, steady on there.
The tone of his voice morphs into an anonymous characterization, half cartoon, half fake American accent. Oh, I forgot to highlight that bit. You have to say, it says, after you say, all right, steady on there, there's another bit. Why?
Why so serious?
Yeah, say it in the microphone.
Why so serious?
He says, with this emission of affected weirdness, a cold sensation flushes through my calves and the back of my throat. I swallow, then exhale from my stomach through my nose. I wouldn't consider that a serious statement. Instead, it's my opinion. He expects his seemingly innocent goofiness to be met with validation, but I do my best to ignore this. It appears that this is the sort of man who praises himself on an ability that he could probably win a competition of making small talk, and I now have to balance getting what I can from him without wasting too much time, seducing him into submission without diminishing too much of my own energy. I understand that you're a doctor, to be exact. I open my phone and read from it. Your profile states that I'm a kinky, submissive emergency doctor who's local and would love to be able to serve you. He looks to the bar to see if the rockabilly waitress can hear us. She obviously can't, as there is a mix of Motown hits doing the rounds to uplift us with the right precision of quality black anonymity and perfectly performative joyfulness. Songs everyone knows, but far too few people know the names of the people who actually made this music. This choice of ambience takes us down into a whole new realm of cozy, cognitive dissonance from its bar's illogical time warp.
Haha, yeah, I'm a doctor and I work in A and F. My job is really intense, so that's why I like to switch off when I'm off work. I take on a lot of responsibility, you know?
Why did you become a doctor, I ask?
What can I say? I'm a good guy.
He chuckles to himself.
No, seriously.
His tone becomes less childish, as if he has just remembered that he is an adult.
I like to help people. Really, I want to be a surgeon someday.
I nod my head.
That doesn't mean it isn't really hard work, though.
There is a pleading in his voice, an unexpected desire for me to pat him on the back, which I reject. It is clear that his admission of his career is always met with some sort of thanks towards him. The waitress returns, holding a tray with one hand, placing my glass of champagne in front of me and his glass of tap water before him. I lean over the table separating us and dip my little finger in his water. The water is too cold. I turn to the waitress, smiling again. I'm so sorry, but this would just be too refreshing. It needs to be a little warmer. I hope you don't mind changing it. The waitress lets out a small, excited laugh and tells me it's no problem. She leaves the menu next to me, then returns to the bar. I take my champagne and open my legs, mimicking his initial body language. The champagne is cold, with a perfect dry sharpness and sparkle. I love pleasure. I can sense him looking me up and down again, confused at my posture. So, I begin. You work hard. I get that. It's an inevitable reality to your profession. I suppose there's something sort of fetishistic about the job that you've chosen, especially if you want to become a surgeon, to treat the body as if it's not alive. This isn't a question, but as I finish speaking, I realize that I've become alert, as if this is something he can respond to with a right or wrong answer.
No.
He blurts out, shaking his head.
My work and kink have nothing to do with each other.
He exclaims as if I'm beginning to trespass into an arena he cannot mold. I see the skin around his forehead tremor, as if this is what it looks like when his brain works, his eyes squinting towards my foot.
Latex. It just feels good, doesn't it?
I don't know what to say to this, and instead I want to see how he can carry the conversation. There is a silence between us that lasts 2 seconds too long.
Do you like latex?
He asks. I exhale through my nose. Well, it's obvious, and because of that it doesn't particularly appeal to me, I say.
You're my mysterious, I like.
He says, winking. I cringe at his compliance with the world, and I remember that I have to use him for my entertainment. I have to extract something from him, otherwise he'll be enjoying himself more than me. Actively ignoring his childish flirtation, I begin speaking again. Do you like putting chaos into order, I ask?
Yeah. That sounds about right.
That makes both of us then. Do you ever tire of having to behave well?
What do you mean?
His face zigzags into a question mark, where a void awaits his answer, an answer he seems incapable of grasping. Being good, I prompt. The plateau between myself, my question, and his expectation to be in control floods him, and to keep control, he replies by saying,
Yeah, well, no. I always do the right thing, but anyway, what do you do for fun?
The waitress returns, now assuming the dynamic between myself and this man, and she actively ignores him, handing me the glass of water to inspect its temperature. Our smiles meet one another as I test it by plunging my index finger right into the middle of the glass, swirling it clockwise for a few times. Perfect, I say. This seems much better suited to his tastes. She nods with a smile spilling out from the corner of her cardinal red lips and returns to the bar. Still holding the glass of lukewarm water in my hand, I take it to my lips and look at the space between his eyes, then slowly disperse a round bead of spit from my mouth into his glass before placing it on the coaster in front of him. And before he can register what I just did, I reply to his question. Oh, you know, I enjoy having fun. I take that very seriously. I like experimenting with my dominance and indulging in shameless pleasure. I stare more intently at his forehead, then to his glass, silently motioning him to swallow the water.
Sounds hot.
He places the glass to his lips, and I begin to laugh as he takes a small sip.
I work really hard for you. That is why I want to unwind sometimes, you know?
His nose shrivels as he swallows the new concoction of the water and my saliva. As it descends down his esophagus, the first real wave of submission crosses his face. His eyes widen when he looks at me, with less of a desire to conquer me, and now with a more vacuous yet titillating fear. You've already mentioned that you work hard. I believe in equality and people having access to care and possibility. I find it amusing that your job is to lessen other people's pain when really you want it yourself. He laughs an empty laugh that seems perfect for filling space as a social cue, rather than him actually having an individual sense of humour. Still, he says,
So, what do you do?
I thought this was mentioned on my profile, which I expect you to be attentive to. I'm an artist and I teach. I have my submissives help me with my work. You do remember this, don't you? This man's uncomprehending quality is becoming more and more concrete, and it's beginning to make me realize that he hasn't felt the need to do any research on me prior to our meeting, and instead feels utterly entitled to my attention. He feels safe.
Impressive. You look young to be teaching.
His point is neither patronizing nor sycophantic, but once again simply something to say for the sake of it. In front of me is a man whose apparent intention of submission is evaporating before my very eyes. Now, as much as I do not want to, I now know that I'll have to turn the conversation to being about him, to be able to get him focused on the dynamic that we're both here for, which will only be possible by stating the obvious to him. So, how did you discover your submissive side, I ask?
Well, I know a year sabbatical to Australia, but ended up working there. I wanted experience and new culture. I met this really hot girl who dumped me. Didn't expect it, but ever since then I loved it.
A weight tugs my heart. Australia was a new culture, I ask?
Yep, incredibly place. Ever been?
He says with the same enthusiasm of an estate agent. No, but I suppose you are right. It is a new culture, I reply. His legs begin to release as he becomes more relaxed. I stare at them and he notices. For a moment he is uncomfortable, aware of himself, and his thighs meet again. Go on.
Amazing people, really solid. They really know how to have a good time. I really have a bad some of the times in my life there. Beautiful place. How did you realize you were dominant?
For a moment, I think he may wink again, but he stops himself. It's always been my way of understanding the world and what my place is in it as a woman. I wait again, watching him after I say this, trying to see if this factors into his understanding of what is happening between us.
Yeah, you know, I've always really respected the idea of a gentleman. I want to be a gentleman. I love the tradition of it. It's so smart. I guess I got that idea from my dad. I really respect my dad. I find a lot of strength in being a good son. It's very important to me. But my mom, God will love her. She's such a giving person. She gives and gives to us all. She's always been there for us with the best advice. It's where my love for women comes from.
Your mother sounds like a loving person, I say. After all, it's true.
100%. Moms are just amazing, aren't they?
This is something I cannot argue with. Mothers are amazing. However, it's certainly something I cannot discuss with him. It simply isn't appropriate or interesting. The conversation is swaying out of clarity. The tension that I'm attempting to build is swaying into the arbitrary. I pull my hand back towards me, then open it. Well, we wouldn't exist without them. I want you to fill this out. I give it to all prospective submissives. It's a way for me to get to know you better, and you will fill it out anonymously. So that means revealing whatever you're comfortable with about yourself. But I like to look at how a submissive curates their lifestyle and their masculinity as a reflection of how they will submit. Taking the document from my bag, I place it in front of him with a pen. He smirks and says,
Looks cool.
I want you to start with the first page, I say as I taste my champagne. He begins to flip through the document, eager that he will have the attention to focus on himself, as if I'm about to indulge him, but also mildly perplexed that this could be a challenge. His brow furrows as he begins to lean over his knees.
Some of these questions seem a bit political. Aren't you feminist? I don't actually like engaging with politics. I'm kind of neutral. You know, I've got friends like you, always want to talk politics when I'm not working. I just don't need the hassle, you know? Sometimes when I have had a hard week and I go see my friends, this one girl, she'll just talk about politics all of the time. And I just want to my free time to chill, you know? No offense, but you know what I mean.
I re-straighten my back and place my fingertips of each hand to meet one another. As I said earlier, I believe in equality and people having access to care. I'm very interested in how far my power as a dominatrix can go as a woman in society, how tangible my power is as a fantasy, and how I can sort of try and push that into something real.
These days, I think people are losing their common sense. Some of these feminists have gone way too far, way too serious. It's not just the feminists' thought, no offense.
Everything is political, I say.
No, that's not true.
Defense arises in his mid-counties accent, and I have to maneuver this into something more familiar for him. Well, your job is political, I reply.
I mean, yeah, in a way, but not really. As I said, I don't like to go into it. What's happening to the NHS isn't cool. I just help everyone. I really want to help people. I love doing that.
You must be upset about the lack of funding deployed in the National Health Service by the Conservative Party, though. For now, I'm earnest with him.
Yeah, totally. 100%. You know, my teamwork is super important. You didn't say what you lecture.
Critical thinking, I say.
Ah, makes sense now. You're clever, aren't you?
My toes curl and I ignore how he is trying to swerve the conversation into his court. Go back to the first page. You're going to fill this out anonymously, so I want you only to state what you're comfortable with revealing.
Yep, whatever you say. Anyway, let's not get into any of that serious stuff. What are you into?
Well, I think there are some universal pleasures that we all enjoy.
Oh yeah, I think I know what you mean. On the weekends, sometimes I like to go warehouse raves. Maybe take a few pills and get out. It's then spend the weekend recovering in bed. I deserve it. I work so hard. Work hard, play hard. I like to have a good time, you know what I mean. Do you like to party?
I suppress a sigh through my nose. Well, you're going to have to work hard for me if you're going to serve me.
I like the sound of that.
He then winks, which is unbearable. You need to start filling in the form. Remember what I said. Is this understood? He looks up at me from the paper, and all of a sudden he seems to be impersonating a prepubescent boy's innocence.
Understood.
He confirms, and he takes a pen in his right hand. As he begins to fill in the basic yet anonymous details about himself, I begin talking. You'll enjoy that. Anyway, I'm sure you will look forward to working for me. I'm searching for a submissive who lives locally and will be able to fill tasks that I need completing. I'm a lifestyle dominatrix. I'm open about what I do, and if you serve me, I expect you to understand that. To dominate a submissive, I like to understand their background and lifestyle decisions to fully grasp their access to power and how that influences them. Now, take a sip of water. He does as I say, then says,
Yes, ma'am.
with a particular irksome joviality, I don't want to be called Mom.
What do you want to be called then?
He is smiling because he thinks he is teasing me. Is there anything worse than a man teasing a woman? Do women tease men this way? Is being mildly patronized supposed to be funny? It is not flirtatious, but I suppose that this is made up of much heterosexual courtship. Mistress is sufficient, and with that, I sense his arousal grow, as if this new use of language solidifies the portal into the realm of sadomasochism between us.
Yes, mistress.
He says, and he takes the glass of water in his left hand, vaguely puzzled at having to use both hands at the same time, realizing for the first time that his body movements suddenly are not totally his, and he takes a sip of water. I begin to laugh audibly. He is finally quiet as he fills out the document, and I attempt to enjoy my champagne. As tenuous as this man's personality is, I do find the space between us deeply enjoyable. Not so much having to hear him talk, but instead being able to make him stop. Just as I had 30-second silence to enjoy my own thoughts, he pipes up again with an observation from the document.
Interesting. I like the element of stress relief associated with being submissive. I'd be up for all of this.
See this part of the application form, I say, pointing my manicured red fingernail at the sheet of paper he had just opened. I want you to tell me how you understand shame. I want you to do a drawing of it.
Yeah, for sure. It's like this, isn't it?
He casually sketches a quick line drawing of a man begging on his knees, hands clasped in front of him in the middle of the page. The drawing can't be more than a few inches in size. The white of the paper engulfs his sad, small expression.
I can't say that drawing is my specialty, you know? Ha ha.
The moment of submission he had just exhibited had been obliviated in his desire to laugh at the drawing, as if he wants me to laugh at it in a way where we are equal and not one where either dominatrix is laughing at him. Ignoring his laughter, I say, begging and shame are not the same thing. Hand me the completed pages. He passes it to me and I leaf through the paper. His handwriting tethers along the lines of the generic and the bulbous, something unpracticed and acceptably immature, an outcome of the digitalization of life and a man who believes creative expression is below him. So, it looks like you're a year younger than me. 28, I say, reading the document.
I've always liked an older woman.
I think he winks again, but I'm consciously looking at the paper and not at him. Ignoring him, I cut him short. You're also 3 inches shorter than me.
That's hot.
My head does not move from looking at the paper. No serious pre-existing medical conditions or allergies, just cats, pollen, and eczema. So far, you seem totally unspectacular. Your favorite band is Oasis, and your favorite film is Reservoir Dogs. How predictably masculine.
Yep, I'm a gentleman, after all. Do you play any instruments?
There is a silence between us. Clearly a space he cannot stand, so he goes back to enjoying the sound of his own voice.
I play acoustic guitar. It is something very, very personal.
I know that this man was irritating, but up until this point, I had been trying very hard to mediate just how much of himself he reveals without him boring me, but this really is a step too far. Never, ever mention that again, I say sternly. He begins laughing. Laugh? Yeah. But this is without anxiety, because he thinks my shift in mood really is humorous, because he in fact is an utterly sincere man. And once again, winding me up is funny, because he's been programmed to think that irritating women is a source of entertainment that is effortless for him to tap into and utterly rewarding.
Why?
He asks, still chortling to himself. This is not a joke. There is nothing more embarrassing than a white man playing acoustic guitar. Nothing. It makes my skin crawl. It makes me want to vomit, to tear down walls. It has no place in contemporary society. It is only of quality a small percentage of times. This mediocrity disguised as profound culture is seriously dangerous, and I believe an opium to the masses. A grain of bafflement crosses this man's face that begins to solidify into a stillness of subtle aggression.
Wait, what's being white got to do with it? Music connects all us.
The potential anger reverts into him, attempting to be simpler, because it is clear that a conversation about race is beyond him, and he cannot be seen wounded like this. He must appear respectful still.
Music, it is beautiful.
Edwin Starr's War begins to play, and the sadness twinges somewhere deep inside my organs. This is when I stare at him, and I decide it is time to move my eyes from his forehead directly into eye contact. I stare at him because I do not have the words for the brutal commonplaceness of his words. I want the stare to purify and discard the dangerous ambivalence of his language, but what my eyes are met with is a robust vision of immovable dreariness. I don't think you understand. I think it's just better if you never mention this again if you want me to dominate you,
Okay, my lips are sealed.
he says chirpily. I want you to begin the next page about potential nicknames. I give all of my submissives names. It's a very precious gift that I will bestow you with. I'm going to start with some ideas and you will write them down in the document.
Sounds fun.
I have a few names I thought of. The first name that comes to mind could be the rock and roll doctor. Another name could be Brogues, after the shoes you're wearing. Maybe chivalry could also be a name for you. He laughs,
Ha ha.
but he doesn't really understand. He laughs because I am smiling. You know what? I think a fabulous name for you could be, I lived in Australia to experience a different culture. You've never been there, but you'd love to go,
I
would
would
you?
love to go to Australia. I'm not sure. I get that one, but whatever you think, I also went on a gap year to Africa.
Africa, I ask.
Yep, to help the kids with HIV.
He says proudly, as if whenever he mentions this life experience, he is always affirmed with the same positive reaction. He is expecting my congratulations. Somehow I'm not surprised to hear this. Hero could also be a good name. Let's add the possibility of calling you team player. That's something you consider an important value to you, isn't it?
100%.
You mentioned something earlier about common sense.
Well, yeah, have you read Jordan Peterson before? He speaks a lot of common sense.
I paused to consider what the safest response to this information could be. I minimized my facial movements. I need to appear soft. He's certainly an interesting man with a lot of newfound influence. How do you define common sense?
Haha, I thought you were the lecturer.
I could also name you 100%.
Why is that?
Haven't you noticed that you say it to affirm something?
Oh yeah, guess I do.
What about calling you Dr. Common Sense? That is truly perfect. That is it. That is your new name. A moment of elation fills me, and the perfection of this name. This is a moment so impeccable to me, and one of the reasons I dominate. To merge these different personality traits together for a submissive is the definition of divinity, and actually comes close to a total feeling of spirituality for me. It works in making new worlds by giving these men new names. Here?
Okay, yeah. Common sense, isn't that common these days? I love listening to Jordan Peterson on podcasts. I just totally get where he's coming from. He's so rational. He doesn't get caught up in emotions, speaks a lot of truth.
The game between us is weakening.
He just gets where men are supposed to be going. It's very straightforward. Haven't got round to reading his books yet. I mean, I don't have time. That's why I listen to podcasts.
There is a problem here. I'm beginning to get frustrated. You have almost entirely spoken about yourself, and your investigation into knowing about me has been vague. If you are really submissive, you'd put your ego aside and want to understand how you can serve me, a powerful woman, and not serve yourself.
I'm sorry, mistress.
Apologize properly, I ask.
Yes, mistress, I apologize.
You will cast off your own self-importance when my presence. Is this understood? It is now time to use language to assume the same of his submission. By taking him into a back and forth, I hope I can enter him into a lower submergence.
Yes, this is hot.
He replies. This is about discipline. I'm trying to get through to you that this is my reality. I am beyond shame.
Yeah, okay, I got it.
Yes, what? I apply the words with a padding of strictness.
Yes, mistress.
Good. You need to do as I say. You need to listen to me.
I want to.
You should want to. You do understand what is happening between us, don't you? My domination is not a secret, and if you are to serve me, you will partake in this. However, you will always remain anonymous. Your ego is of no interest to me. The dominatrix is always more important than the submissive.
I know.
I know what?
I know, mistress.
He peers back into the document. He is annoying. I am not a cheap thrill, and neither am I a facilitator of a man's facile needs without myself benefiting.
I understand, mistress.
So now, tell me what drew you to my profile online.
I'm not going to lie. I think you're really hot. And looking at your profile pic online, it looks like you're not just putting it on like a lot of girls do. They don't have it in them. It's an act and turn off.
There is another 3-second gap where I believe his mouth may be watering before he gulps and yelps out a soft,
Mistress.
You need a lot of discipline. Currently it seems that you're too interested in your own pleasure.
I need to be taught, mistress.
Taught.
I need to be taught.
Clearly, I say, rolling my eyes melodramatically.
I've always wanted to meet a really dominant woman. Please teach me, mistress.
Is that my job?
I wanted to be mistress.
If it is a job, wouldn't that require an offering from you?
Ah, sorry, that's a big turn-off. I can't go down that road.
A submissive giving their dominant a gift is symbolic of power transference.
No, it's not right.
It could be anything that I need, however small or seemingly insignificant. Something to prove that you were useful. If you were to be unimaginative, you could get me a box of chocolates or a bottle of wine, an object that represents you to me. You see, the object cannot receive a gift. I am not simply a facilitator without my own objective. I am not an object. I'm a hole that cannot be fucked. I am holeless.
Yeah, I get all of that, but it's not right, is it?
You just believe that women should give you their time and attention because they want to please you?
Well, it doesn't sound good when you say it like that.
Nothing in life is free. Your legs are opening again. Close them.
I'm sorry, mistress.
He closes them once more, his body reverting into a crooked shape, seemingly uncomfortable to him. It is then that I realize that Dr. Common Sense wants me to like him. This really is about as pathetic as it gets. You aren't going to be hard work, are you? I ask. I feel myself becoming more matronizing. There's a repetition of gestures emerging from me that seemingly has some kind of effect on him, but is quickly becoming dull for me. I do not want to have to tame the submissive. I want the submissive man to come to me ready and pining.
I'll try not to be mistress.
He replies, you're meant to be working for me, not the other way around. I will use anything you make for me. You'll begin on the next page of the application.
Understood? Yep, mistress.
This page is going to ask you slightly more demanding questions now.
Not a problem.
He nods. I think it's time you were quiet for a while so I can join my own thoughts. Answer the application in silence.
Yes, mistress.
You can begin. He hunches his shoulders over his knees and starts to work away. It could be considered that this meeting for me, as a woman, would be potentially dangerous. I'm meeting a male stranger to discuss sadomasochistic dynamics. Trivial questions surrounding this arena of sexuality are often met with sensationalized visuals of gimmicky fear of a cinematic concept of a freak, a deranged pervert with an undercurrent of violence ready to emerge at any time, potentially an eccentric, a man who could not fit into society or a man without conventional success, intimacy or romance in his life. Often this stereotype surfaces into people's minds as the effeminate man at war with himself. However, gazing at this man's assured aura, I know that these notions of individuality within the male consumers of sadomasochisms are most of the time a total illusion. Submission exists in us all. After what couldn't be more than 15 seconds of silence, he blurts out,
What is a taboo?
he rubs his square chin.
Interesting question.
You need to be quiet and think for yourself.
Sorry, yep, mistress.
And he burrows back into the document. It is at this point I decide that I will have to look at Dr. Common Sense with some sort of effort. Upon immediate impression, there is not a lot to discuss. There are no unique quirks to his face or body, which would usually hint at a greater sense of character, as if he has spent a lifetime avoiding anything that could present him with a sense of individuality. His face is both smooth and defined, but not enough to make him either classically attractive or unattractive. His hair is a lighter tone of brown. This is one discernible fact that I can confirm, and it is short at the sides and longer on the top. Maybe he has been to a barber a month ago, but no longer than this. His eyes, which are of medium size, are a little too close together. His lips are thin and eyebrows sort of thick. I suppose he has some sort of just discernible jawline, which would align him with a suitable amount of current desirable machismo. His arms have a normal layer of fair hair and a few protruding veins. The hands, unfortunately for him, are not large. His nails are slightly bitten. His clothes encapsulate his body into mediumness, adept spaces between the cloth and his body that accumulate into something sort of solid. The details of his style reside into the world of the metropolitan, but not enough to make him stand out as in any way fashionable. I smell something from him, a light aftershave, a clean body, an emission of conformity so strong he has to be uncomfortable. Regardless of this commonness, there is an eagerness to take up a space he perhaps doesn't feel he assumes naturally, an aspiration for something greater, but not too great, a greatness that already exists in the world rather than one he has to make for himself. My gaze falls at his lap. I imagine him in private practicing or even jamming with his guitar. Perhaps he is in his bedroom when he does this, and his penis would press against, even rub the instrument, where he puts it to his groin, his sanctimonious strumming emitting sentimental vibrations, teasing himself into arousal, the strings echoing within the body of the instrument and reverberating onto his shaft, engorging his sex into rigidity, then waves of woeful titillation filling him with ecstasy, his moaning transforming into one expression of saccharine passion to the next. I hope he doesn't sing. Perhaps, perhaps the guitar is man's perfect lovemaker. I notice that he seems to have finished the first page, so I tell him to begin the next.
Cool, my dream dinner party.
He pushes his hands through his hair and flexes his muscles as he reads these words from the application out loud to himself. Yes, you need to write down 8 people for your dream dinner party, I say. Watching his right hand maneuver across the page, names appear.
Tom Hanks, John Lennon, Elton John, Jack Nicholson.
He stops and ponders.
Muhammad Ali, the Queen, Beyoncé, Maria Sharapova.
He ponders further, crossing out Maria Sharapova and adds,
And Elon Musk.
Start the next page.
This is fun.
He is smiling, his eyes glued to the paper. Pointing at the page, I tell him, here's the new page. Here you're going to circle your interests and underline your dislikes from this arrangement of activities.
Cool.
I watch him as he alphabetically descends the list, circling the following.
Alternative music, begging, collars, clubbing, female supremacy, fine dining, food worship, mental bondage, movies, museums, travel, gymnastics, intellectual discourse, massage, getting, massage, giving, objectification, psychology, raves, rock music, role-playing, running.
And then he underlines,
Astrology, conservative politics, gambling, and hunting.
He passes the page to me so I can digest his choices more clearly. I look up at him from over the page, and he looks at me greedily. This eagerness turns my stomach, and I need to puncture it. Do you think you're normal? I ask him, my eyes still on the page.
Normal?
Yes, normal.
Yeah, I've got it all together, if that's what you mean.
He begins laughing because sanity is clearly a hilarious subject. He carries on.
I've got to be with this job. I always have to go to the right thing.
I think you could be useful to me, I say.
I would like that a lot, you know.
He says, interjecting me. Enough about you. This is one of the last pages. I like submissives to sign this contract for me. It will give all rights to the work you make for me on my command to me. You'll sign it anonymously. He begins laughing.
Haha.
You do understand, don't you? I ask. He bends over the table and signs his name as Dr. Common Sense with rotund block capitals, still chuckling to himself.
Yeah, I get it.
He says, passing the application back to me with his consciously toned and bulbously veiny forearm. What does serving mean to you? I ask him, now finally looking straight at him.
Deep question.
He moves his fist to his chin and stares at my foot. Yeah, now you have to...
I get satisfaction from that, from working hard.
His answer means nothing. I think it's more like you get satisfaction from being denied it and working towards it, learning how to really submit and how to be useful, don't you think? The corner of his lips curl and his right eyebrow lifts.
Sounds hot.
I slip the application into my handbag and I take the final sip of champagne. So, you do understand everything. Do you have any questions for me?
Nope, I sure do get it all. What happens now?
His eyes skim my collarbone. I may be in touch when I believe you could be worthwhile to me.
Got it. I really hope I can be mistress.
If I allow you to make work for me, I shall always respect your anonymity. Sub's personalities are of no interest to me.
Cool, that's cool. Yeah, this is private.
I'm going now. I have another appointment. You will naturally take the bill.
Yeah, okay, mistress. Guess I will, whatever happened to feminism, huh?
I am a goddess, and it's a privilege and an honor for you to have had my time and attention this way.
Yes, mistress.
You need to work on your use of language around me. I demand total respect. I think this will be very good for you.
Got it, mistress.
I stand up, putting my bag over my shoulder. Looking down at him, he feels smaller but somehow quite compact. Goodbye, Dr. Common Sense. And with that, I walk out into the sunlight as he remains sitting and calls out a feeble.
See you.
You can get up now. You can go.
Great work.
Yeah.